what's the basis for spaceships except for conveyance to escape the matrix? No, but it's more than you've seen it do. I promise you that my bars is rap genius proof, and I'd rather take the scenic route. I'm not the type that you see in groups.
Okay, this is Hold the Mic with Josh Kurtzburchard and
Akil Vicks.
And we're here in Southwest Philadelphia yet again, second time, round 2. And we're here actually on a day after a very somber day in our nation. Yesterday in Charlottesville, Virginia, there was a demonstration held by white nationalists or white supremacists in around a statue of Robert E. Lee, and there was a counter demonstration, and while the counter demonstration was being held, there was sparring and fighting between the two sides, and then at one point a car ran up a street and just smashed through a group of counter demonstrators, killing one person, injuring 17.
19, I heard.
Yeah, 19. So I'm gonna ask Akil a few questions. Is this some new level that we're at here, or is this just same thing, different outfit, different dressing?
It's something that we've definitely seen before. During the civil rights movement, there were white riots where, people would get together and they would, go after black neighborhoods or, a specific black person. In this case, they're rallying to protect the statue of a Confederate general. But in reality, they showed up with bats and poles and riot shields and old-timey wooden Game of Thrones shields
and guns.
And I didn't know. I didn't hear, but there was guns confirmed. So yeah, guns. Like I heard someone was encouraging them to bring guns, but yeah, they beat some 20-year-old kid in the parking lot during these demonstrations. They came there to, intimidate because they felt emboldened. They feel like it's their time because their president is in office. And this is them coming as their coming out party. And it's not something that we've never seen before, but our generation and certainly our parents' generation hadn't thought they would ever see this kind of stuff again. And we didn't think we were going to see this kind of stuff again. But, it's 2017. Everything old is new again.
Do you think that do you think our generation's really going to, do you think that a majority of people in our generation could ever take to this kind of rhetoric, or do you think that this is a niche thing, or is there enough racism in this country that if the push came to shove and the pressure was on and the economy was bad and the world was at war, that we could see this kind of hate actually take hold on a big Nazi scale?
That's a really good question, because you never know. I don't think racism is ever going to go away. It's just what conditions are in the country that give impetus to these racists to come out and do what they're doing. And yeah, you're right. If the economy continues to suck for the working class, if we get into another war, if the president is doing really bad in the polls, he needs a boost. Who knows what could get people riled up and like
a nuclear brinksmanship in North Korea.
Maybe or maybe a trade war with Mexico. So, but I don't know. I think our generation has something that previous generations didn't have, which is a big deal, which is the internet. I think there's way more people in our generation that are educated and can get educated and can get access to different opinions. They can get out of their bubble a lot easier than people could get out of their bubble. But the guy who invented the loudspeaker system blamed himself for the rise of Nazism because it was the fact that Hitler could get on a platform and have his voice projected out to the large crowds that he thought that's what gave rise to Nazism. Well, you know, the internet is a way bigger loudspeaker, and while there is a lot of like hate and nonsense on the internet, there's a very strong counterbalance. I think it's a stronger counterbalance of like actual facts and people who are ready to take on this rhetoric from, you know, the alt-right or the white nationalists or the Nazis, whatever you want to call them.
So, right, okay. So,
in short, I think our generation is equipped to like handle this.
Right. But there is a large part of our generation that I often forget about, which is the people that were raised by some of the like parents in the community where I grew up who, you know, some of whom were great and wonderful and had, you know, great politics and were progressive, and then some who, like, they sent their kids to a Quaker school, but like you could like, you know, with certain parents, the stories went around that that they would drop the N-word in you know, private quarters, or sort of make jokes, racist jokes. Like, do you fear a latent racism as that might not be, you know, the alt-right or these white nationalists, but like the kind of passive racism that, like, if it was provoked, you know, under again more like pressured circumstances.
Yeah.
You know, the people who voted for Donald Trump, for instance, you know.
Well, yeah, no, I mean, that passive racism is, to me personally, since I don't live in Charlottesville, or like I don't live in, you know, Pennsylvania, PA, like I don't, the kind of racism that like affects me the most is that passive racism, is that, like, you know, people who think they're all good and they have these good intentions, but they still cross the street when they see you walking down, or like they still, you know, they still think like, oh, we need to tell security because this black guy walked in the store, you know. So I think both of those things are a problem. I think the passive racism is not something that we can really eliminate. It's just we're tribalists. Like we like to hang out in our little cliques and groups, and we like to like make up reasons to not like or be afraid of the other groups. So we're not gonna really get rid of that. I think we have to be more vigilant of how those attitudes infect our systems and become systematic biases that trickle down and ruin people's lives. But I think this outspoken, like, you know, but wear your Nazi regalia and go beat up some black people rhetoric is something that, like, it's something that, like, is an effect of how shitty our political process and our economy is. Because these people, they're not angry at anything they can tell you. You know, they're not. You ask like 10 people what their perfect world would look like, you'll get 10 different answers. They don't know what they're protesting for. They just feel like, oh, well, it's not as easy to be a white guy in America anymore, and it must be these black people's fault. Like, yeah, it's not as easy to be a white guy in America anymore, but that's more have to do with Walmart than it does. Like, you know. Yeah, I mean, I think a part of that is just like in America, we never had a real, you know, reckoning with what the South did and what the North did and what chattel slavery really was. We're just kind of like, all right, we are outlawing the slavery. We'll have this big war about it. We'll burn the entire South down, and then we'll just let them, you know, fester in their own like anger about this whole thing that went down, and we'll never address any of it. We'll just pretend it never happened, and we'll all go on being racist, but we'll just pretend that like now that we've ended this war, we're good. And like, you know, I think, you know, you see where, like, you know, how Germany handled it with, like, they directly confronted, like, what this Nazi regime was terrible, and we have to recognize it, to, like, internalize it, and, like, you know, the joke is they kind of overcorrected.
Right.
But but we never kind of had that process here. And you see that with all these people that are just, in their mind, innocently trying to claim that the Confederate battle flag is some piece of their heritage that is innocent. It just means, like, I'm proud to be from the South. Like,
So what is it? What is it more? What is it in addition to just some regalia, some kind of symbol?
I mean, there was a war fought over whether it was good or legal to own people, and the people who wanted to fight for owning people used that flag. It's pretty simple.
Right. So it's similar. Right. Okay. So
It's like when people say, like, I don't approve of slavery, I just like the Confederate flag. It's like saying, like, I don't approve of the Lakers, I just like wearing a Kobe Bryant jersey. Like, you're wearing the symbol of the team that fought for slavery. It doesn't really matter what you think about what that symbol means. It's, and it's disingenuous at best, because a lot of people are just doing it to feel like they're being defiant. It's counterculture. They're not being PC. They're standing up to the oppression of the left or whatever the fuck that means. And, like, they don't care. They don't, half the people don't care. The people that do care, they're the ones that are carrying tiki torches and ramming their cars into people. But a lot of these people who fly the Confederate flag are, like, make jokes about this kind of stuff. They're just trying to feel like they're more clever and more, honest than the next person. And,
Right. They see it as a kind of, fuck you to the culture of the liberal culture or the Northeast or whatever it is.
The
coastal
elites or whatever.
urban culture.
Over the last, like, couple weeks, I think that's been the issue. That's been the topic that's, like, completely, pissed me off more than almost anything. This whole false equivalency between the left and the right, because now you're gonna see. You already had Trump say condemn the violence on many sides, which, what does many sides mean? There's two sides. What are you talking about? But then, you're going to see all the articles and all the think pieces like, well, if, these counter protesters didn't go there looking for violence, this was going to have been a peaceful protest, been a peaceful, right,
Right. So they're going to equate the counter protesters as having this, as starting from the same point as the white nationalist protesters.
Yeah. I've heard people, on social media refer to it as some idiots show up protesting something dumb, and then some other idiots show up, they counter protest, and that's what caused this whole thing. Meaning that, like, being a Nazi is just as idiotic as being mad at people who are trying to be Nazis.
Right.
Like, that's where we're at in 2017. You got people like Bill Maher, who, I love Bill Maher. He's the king of the fuckboys. But Bill Maher will go on his program and complain about, like, the leftists who shut down, him speaking because he said a lot of sexist things in his past, or will shut down Ann Coulter because she says a lot of racist things in the past, as if that's just as bad as racism and sexism. Like, it's not, because let's remember what the First Amendment is here. It's the government shutting down free speech. A bunch of, enthusiastic college kids that don't have a job and have a lot of time so they can go out and protest Bill Maher and Ann Coulter. That's not a violation of your free speech rights. Like, if the college says that, hey, this is scary, we're going to shut this down because people are really angry about it, that's their right as a private institution, and that's the students' right as private citizens to protest. Everyone is getting their own rights. Just because you, Bill Maher, or Ann Coulter didn't get to speak doesn't mean you got your rights taken away. Like, quit being a snowflake, guys. But in this insane, like, drive, in our political discourse to like call it even and say it's both sides. Right now, we're going to have a situation where people are going to defend Nazis, and it's already happening. But people are going to defend Nazis because something about it's the left in general that people just don't like for whatever reason. You know, they think the left is sanctimonious. They think the left wants to like control how they live. They think the left can't take a joke, whatever.
Yeah. Maybe because they recognize that the left is actually, well, maybe they fear what they sense, which is that the left has better answers on issues. Can I just say that?
Yeah, you can say that. I agree with you. But I think it's something even deeper than that, because I don't think they really think about the issue so much as this used to be a country where if you were a white man, you could say what you want, do what you want, believe what you want, and no one would challenge you on it. And now, people can challenge you on it, and they don't like that. And it doesn't matter if you think you're a liberal like Bill Maher, or you are conservative, like, name them. Like, most of this reaction is the idea that you can't just say whatever you want anymore without someone calling you out on your shit. And that's what, you know, that's why you get these guys marching to try to preserve a statue of a guy who lost a war. That's why you get, you know, that's why you get Donald Trump. That's why you get Donald Trump, honestly.
Right. In fact, I saw something about this. The Robert E. Lee statue was put up in the 20s after World War I, when there was this sort of foment about race. It was like there's like spikes in like, you know, in the South and in most cities. Sometimes there's, you know, more tension or more white people are like burning down black people's houses or whatever it was at this time in the South. There was a sort of heightened sense of white nationalism, and that's when the statue was put up. And then this commentator I saw today said that it just kind of like was similar to today in the kind of like sentiments being shared and the kind of climate and the temperature on the situation was similar to in the 20s when the statue was put up. So he had this kind of historical like ladder, you know, things happening and you know, history repeating itself basically. But yeah, I mean, that moral equivalency is pretty. It's pretty stunning how people can pull that off, and like you said, you know, yeah, I mean, people used to be able to come. White men used to be able to, like exactly what you said. I'll just steal your words. That they used to do whatever they wanted, say whatever they wanted, you know, sexually harass as much as they wanted, race bait as much as they wanted, you know, whatever.
Bill O'Reilly, people. That's why Bill O'Reilly was the most popular cable news host up until he sexually harassed his way out of a job. Was that he stood in for everything that white men think that they're losing in this country. You know, he was loud, he was brash, he called it like it is, he put the blacks in their place, put the women in their place, and he kept it moving. And people missed that because they were promised that. They were promised that that's what you will get when you become a white man.
People think that's freedom.
Right, exactly. People think that's freedom. And now that the left is standing quite forcefully in the way of that, and sometimes, to be honest, we're annoying about it. We're little whiny little, you know, we'll stick your finger in your nose and we'll be like, that's problematic, and like, and you know what? Yes, it can be annoying, but you know, guess what? Too bad. That's like you're annoyed. My bad.
Like, you have to give up some of your power. Yeah. To make this more fair.
Right.
Like
you're annoyed at this. My bad. Thank you. And, you know, good luck with that 100 cents on the dollar that you make at your job. Yeah. You know, like.
Yeah. And yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't. and then economically, it doesn't. That shift of like the left and progressives being able to, hear people's words and be able to challenge people, especially in the media, like challenge people on what they say, challenge Bill Maher, challenge, who's the famous racist? I don't know, someone. David Duke. Yeah. And fight words with words, etc. But I guess, what was I going to say? I guess that the way that I kind of lost my train of thought, but the way that liberals are so sort of precise about how they like a true liberal will be able to like read a paragraph out of some college student's essay and be able to like tick marks over where they use like racially insensitive language or like sexist language, and you would be able to do that like pretty easily. You can pick it out anywhere. Yeah. But it is that like ultimate, for the bettering of society. We know. Oh, I know what I was gonna say, but go ahead. You have something?
Oh no, it's just
Well, just say economically, it works out in interesting ways, and I think it works out interesting ways for instance, for what I imagine, because I'm not one of this group, but like for black folks, okay, you have a whole different, you have like this huge amount of intersectionality. It's this famous word now. Given where you're at economically, where you're at education-wise, given where you're at, but then you have people who say, okay, so if you're black and you have education and money, then you just have as much privilege as anyone else. But like what? Like tell me what you would say to someone who would say something like that. So who would say that, and then who would also say, and if you're white and you're poor, then you have it just as bad as anyone.
Well, all right. Yeah.
That's another kind of equivalency.
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. So, is it Andy Blake? I can't think of his name. Professional tennis player, ranked tennis player, was in an airport, just chilling on the phone, waiting for a plane. World famous. Gets tackled by police and like handcuffed and like roughed up because he fit the description. The guy's wearing a pink tennis polo and shorts and some Stan Smith Adidas, and like gets Thabo Cephalosha, NBA player, gets his ankle broken by police trying to break up a fight. Misses like some time from the NBA because the cops just decided like, oh, there's a black guy in this altercation, let's just treat him as physically and roughly as possible. There was the baseball player whose son got killed in their driveway trying to get into his own car. So like, yeah, like you can have money and status, it doesn't exactly matter. I've seen college professors get roughed up and like thrown on the ground.
Famously,
Skip Gates.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Skip Gates. I mean, Sandra Bland herself was like going. She was a college graduate. Like she was starting her new job, and got pulled over, and then so like it doesn't matter what. It should be obvious, but it doesn't matter what your economic or class status is. Like, if you get the wrong cop on the wrong day, it doesn't matter.
Right.
And then as far as if you want to talk about poor white people and like what they go through with police, it's not it's a problem there too, you know, like, and I think that's the part that no one talks about, is that like there are plenty of poor white people who go through similar deals with the police. The only difference is, in America, you have a much bigger chance of getting the benefit of the doubt if you're white
In the court.
than if you're black.
Or by the cop.
Or by the cop. You know, like like I when Ferguson first happened, I remember I went out, it was like around Christmas time, and I went out to get drinks with my manager, who's from Northeast Philadelphia. Great guy, right? But you know, from a part of the city where they really wouldn't have cause to talk to a lot of black people about interactions with police. But they were talking, him and his cousin were talking actually, and we were talking about, you know, the protests and BLM, and they were talking about like how, yeah, they used to get in trouble with the police, and like they were respectful. They would like try to break in places and get chased by the police, and then, you know, then the police would take them home and tell their parents and all that stuff. And then like, so you realize, like, you guys are describing when you were kids, how when the police chased you and caught you, they would bring you home to your parents with a warning. And these people, when they get chased and caught by the police, we get thrown in the back of a paddy wagon without a seatbelt and get killed. Or we just get shot. So like, you can, and you know, to his credit, my boss's cousin like started like, you know, he realized that, like, yeah, we used to do all types of terrible shit, and we never were afraid of the police killing us for it. Whereas, like, you know, there's not the...
And these past few years have been, probably we should consider them as years of police not restraining themselves, obviously, because so many people were killed by police killing them. But like, you know, I mean, since the earliest police killings and shootings, I mean, Trayvon Martin and so on, that I think of in this recent kind of, you know, steady stream of killings, you would think that the police would have more restraint, because they know that they are being filmed on video cameras, and now some of them have those little body cameras, but it's not changing. But anyway, I was gonna ask you one more thing. I mean, do you think that, you know, the classic question, which a lot of people, I think, even people that would call themselves staunch Democrats, would say that they question, is affirmative action, which is, you know, I think a very misunderstood policy, and one that, of course, we all know benefits white women more than anyone. And but I don't know. Do you have anything about that and equivalency or non-equivalency?
I mean, it all just kind of circles back to the main theme of, like, when people start losing their privilege, it feels like oppression, and that's what the affirmative action fight is about. That's what transgendered bathrooms are about. Like, all these little issues, all these little, you know, social issues that, like, you know, are signs of progress that we were fighting so hard for, that these people are angry about. It all comes back to the idea that this was supposed to be their country, and freedom means that, you know, of course, you know, they should be considered ahead of all the other black people. You know, like, you know, of course, if a guy only wants to hire white people, should be allowed to hire white people, because that's freedom. And, like, you know, if the black people have a problem with that, just work harder, and then maybe people will get over their racism. Like, it doesn't make any sense, but that's what they're thinking, you know, is. And, you know, with affirmative action, like, it's a complicated issue, and a lot of people have a lot of different takes on, is it really effective? Does it hurt more than it helps? Because you have ignorant people that then, like, you know, right, yeah, and it's, you know, and And I have friends who are continuing in academia, and like they get that question, they get that whole, oh, are you here because of affirmative action? And like they're in a doctorate program. What do you think? Yeah. But I think like it's a situation where we're not gonna fix this stuff. We're not gonna fix it by like telling people that they're racist. That I still say we should do that because we need to call, like, you can't have a conversation and then afraid to say what reality is. But I don't think we're going to fix these people by telling them they're racist or explaining it to them. I think what you have to do is stop giving them a reason to lash out, basically. Like, a lot of these people are angry because they lost their jobs and they're, economically they're suffering in some way. And if we as liberals, as progressives, as leftists, keep fighting for these social issues and identities issues, but also make these economic issues a main part of the platform, once these these people who have these problematic views about race are stuck in their 50s mentality, once they start experiencing life in America as not being so dog eat dog, then they can stop, being afraid or angry at that other dog. And I think we can't, I hear people always trying to put the social issues against the economic issues as if they're opposite, when, during the primaries, that was a big line of attack, across two parties. You have the Hillary people saying like, oh, Bernie only cares about these economic issues and he won't do anything about, African American issues or women's rights or these very, very important social issues. And then you had the Bernie Bros, which that's a whole nother podcast. But then you had the Bernie Bros, such as they were, launching back and saying like, oh, well, they only care about, these identity issues. They don't care about the economic issues. Here's the thing, they're the same. Economic issues are social issues. They are identity issues. Like when you talk about the wealth gap, black people suffer from that more than any other demographic. The wage gap, same thing. Like we talk about women fighting for equal pay. Well, that's an economic issue. Like it's about money, and like I feel like both sides. I feel like the economic people, the Bernie Sanders people, are more than ready to like merge those two issues. It's the Hillary side. Sorry, I don't mean to like use her name. I know she's a ghost in the forest now. The Hillary side, the establishment Democrat side, to be more exact, doesn't want to talk about those economic issues because they have donors that don't want them to. But that's what's keeping. That's what's keeping Democratic unity from happening right now. The fact that we can't make that natural marriage between the social issues, the identity politics, and the economic issues that affect everybody, to give a message that like, hey, if you are an oppressed group in this country, we got your back. And if you're not an oppressed group in this country, but you're just poor because of all the the things that our government does to mismanage the economy, we got your back too. We don't have to be enemies, and guess what? While you're over here, while we're helping you get your job back or like get out of that disastrous loan, let's, you'll get to hang out with some of these black people and some of these LGBTQ people, and you'll get to know that, oh wait, I shouldn't blame them. Like, bathrooms aren't the biggest deal in the world. Like, all this stuff really doesn't matter. What matters is that we all deserve a real chance at the American dream, such that it is, that we don't have right now. So that's my campaign speech that I'll never write for anybody.
All right, well, this was Hold the Mic. This is me, Josh Chris Burchard, and
Akil Vicks.
Thanks for listening.
This is just hallucination. We basically escaping from hallucination. Making do with fake is just a new vacation. So it seems so concerned with the scene. I prefer a lucid dream on. Dream of nights like these. Dream of taking flight. Dream of heights like these. Dreams is fucking nice. Get right like me. I'ma be alright. I do this nightly, yeah. You should tell me what you know. Now you should tell me what you see. I think it's gonna be a very nice night. I think it's gonna be like it was all a dream. You should tell me what you know. Now you should tell me what you see. I think it's gonna be a very nice night. I think it's gonna be like it was all a dream.